The tea was still hot when she told me. Not crying. Not shaking. Just sipping jasmine tea and casually saying, "I went on a date last night." Like she was giving me an update on the weather. Like she expected me to nod, maybe smile, maybe thank her for the honesty. I didn't say a word. I just looked at the slice of lemon floating in my mug, wondering how something could look so calm while everything else shattered. She waited for a reaction. I didn't give her one. Not right away. She leaned forward, almost impatient. "Aren't you going to say anything?" I finally looked at her, and I said the one thing she never expected to hear. "Did he like the dress I picked out for you?" That's when her face changed. It was quick, like a flash of lightning before a storm. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried to laugh. "It's not what you think." I held up my hand. "You wore the heels I got you for Christmas. You used the perfume I left on the bathroom counter last week. The same one you said was too strong. You wore the necklace my mom gave you." She stood up, suddenly defensive. "It was just dinner, Everett." "Stop using that word," I said. You just went behind my back. You just gave someone else a night I begged you to give me for months. You just threw away a decade." She looked like she'd been slapped. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was too tired for that. "I wanted you to ask me what was wrong," she said quietly. "I did," I replied. 16 times. You said you were tired. Now I understand why." She sat back down like her knees couldn't hold her. "I didn't sleep with him, and maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. It didn't matter." I pulled my phone from my pocket and placed it gently between us. "There's a message drafted to your boss. It says you're taking emergency leave." I already forwarded the email to HR. She blinked. "What?" "There's a suitcase in the trunk. Hotels under your maiden name. 5 nights, prepaid. I even picked one with a spa. You always said you needed time to think." I stood. "Now you have it." She didn't cry. Not then. But when I picked up my mug and walked out of the kitchen without looking back, I heard the sound of ceramic shattering behind me. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I wanted to. Not even because I was angry. I just couldn't bear the sound of her breathing beside me. That soft rhythm used to calm me, used to be my reminder that everything was okay. Now it felt like an alarm clock counting down the seconds until my sanity cracked. She didn't come to bed either. I heard her pacing upstairs, slowly at first, then faster. I imagined her rehearsing speeches, rewriting the night in her head, trying to find a version that made her the victim. At some point it all went quiet. That's when I knew the guilt had kicked in. But it was the text I got at 12:14 a.m. that really blew the roof off. Unknown number. No name. Just, "Hey man." I didn't know she was married. I sat up so fast I knocked the remote off the couch. My heart actually hurt. My chest tightened like someone had pressed pause on my lungs. I typed back, "Who is this?" No answer. A minute passed. Then 2. Then another text. "Tessa didn't tell me. I swear. I found out tonight." I never would've. I stared at the name. Damon. My stomach turned. Damon was our friend. We met him through a game night Tessa hosted for her work friends last year. He was charming, single. Said he was taking a break from dating because he was focusing on himself. Apparently, he found enough focus to take my wife out for wine and creme brulee. I didn't reply. Instead, I quietly walked to the stairs, grabbed her phone off the charger, and stepped into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I unlocked it with her fingerprint. Don't ask how I knew her passcode. I'm the one who set it up when she dropped her phone in a puddle last summer. There it was. A thread with D. Heart emoji next to the name. No last name. How subtle. Messages back and forth. Flirty. Slightly suggestive. Then the date planning. She had told him she was single. Even said she hadn't been seen in public with a man in years. I wanted to scream or throw the phone against the mirror. But instead I took a screenshot. Then another. And another. Every message. Every photo. Every good morning face blowing a kiss. Then I placed her phone back like nothing happened. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't want to see what kind of lie she'd spin. I wanted her to wonder if I knew. I wanted her to feel the weight of every unread message, every notification she didn't hear me see. In the morning, I made coffee like usual. Sat at the table. She came down slowly, in that morning after a fight shuffle. Eyes puffy, hair tied back, oversized hoodie. My hoodie. She opened her mouth to speak. Probably had a whole act prepared. I cut her off before the first word. Damon says hi. She dropped her coffee cup. Not just a tremble. She dropped it. It shattered across the tile floor like it was staged in a movie. Her face went ghost white. Like I just opened the door to a room she thought was locked forever. She looked at me like she didn't know who I was. But for the first time in this entire twisted mess, I saw fear in her eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. Because she realized I wasn't going to beg. She tried to deny it at first. Said Damon was just a friend. That it wasn't a date. Just dinner and catching up. I didn't interrupt her. I let her spiral, watching her face twitch as she realized the web she'd spun was unraveling thread by thread. The lies came slow and sloppy, like she hadn't expected to need them. That's the thing about people who cheat and get caught. They always look unprepared, like the truth wasn't supposed to walk in the front door so soon. When I finally said, "I saw the messages," she stopped mid-sentence. That was it. One sentence, and her entire performance short-circuited. She went silent. Her face dropped. She sat down without another word and stared at the floor like a student waiting for the principal to decide her fate. Then came the most insulting part of all, her apology. Not the real kind. Not the gut-wrenching kind. No, it was the flat, dry kind. The, "I'm sorry you're hurt" kind. The "I didn't mean for it to happen" kind. I asked her how long it had been going on. She said it wasn't serious, just a few weeks. That she'd felt invisible, and Damon made her feel interesting again. Interesting. I guess I had become too predictable. The guy who asked about her day. Who made grocery lists and cleaned her car when the seasons changed. Who always asked if she was cold when we went out and carried an extra sweater just in case. Apparently, that made me invisible. Damon, he just had to smile and text her late at night and order dessert. She kept talking, trying to fill the silence between us. Like if she talked fast enough, I wouldn't hear the truth underneath. She told me she was confused, that it wasn't planned, and she didn't mean to hurt me. But the whole time, all I could think about was how carefully she had lied. How she saved his number under a fake name. How she turned off message previews. How she went to a restaurant we'd never been to before just in case someone saw them. That's not confusion. That's strategy. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I told her I was stepping out. I needed air. I needed space. I needed anything but her. As I grabbed my keys, she stood up and grabbed my arm. Lightly, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure she still had permission to touch me. "Please don't go," she whispered. "We can talk more." I looked at her hand on my arm and said, "You had dinner. You had dessert. You had your date. Now let me have my silence." And then I walked out. I didn't even know where I was driving. I just followed the road until the houses turned into fields and the city lights faded into darkness. At some point, I parked near an old gas station we used to stop at when we were first dating. It was closed now. Broken sign. Empty lot. The kind of place you drive past without noticing. Fitting, I thought. That's what I'd become to her. Background. I sat in that car for 2 hours. I didn't call anyone. Didn't text. I just sat there, clutching the steering wheel like it was the only thing still holding me together. And then the thought hit me. What if this wasn't the first time? What if Damon was just the one I caught? By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was already up, and I hated that it was. There's something about sunlight that makes pain feel more real. Like it's not just a bad dream you can shake off. I sat in the car for a while, engine off, keys in hand, wondering if going inside meant accepting that the life I thought I had was officially over. When I finally opened the door, she was sitting at the kitchen table, exactly where I left her. Her face pale, mascara smudged under her eyes. She hadn't slept. That used to mean something to me. Now it just meant she had time to rehearse more lies. I didn't say anything. I walked past her, upstairs, straight to the office. I sat down at her old laptop. She rarely used it anymore since getting the new work one. It was the same laptop she used to plan our anniversary trip 2 years ago. I remember because she made me leave the room every time she researched surprises. The password hadn't changed. What I found wasn't some dramatic folder labeled affair or a bunch of hidden photos. It was something worse. Subtle patterns, old messages, private browser tabs, draft emails never sent. Her digital footprint was tidy, but not perfect. In a tucked-away subfolder of saved documents, I found a file named Tuesday Notes. Innocent enough until I opened it. It was a log of dates, not just Damon. Names, locations, excuses she gave me, and even ratings like some kind of twisted restaurant review system. The entries stretched back nearly a year. Some were one-liners. Others were detailed. Ben. Met at conference. Good conversation. Not great chemistry. Or, Mark. Gym guy. Funny but clingy. Not my type. Then, farther down, Damon, finally someone who listens. Feels easy. Couldn't breathe. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there, my pulse screaming in my ears. That file was never meant to be seen. It wasn't a confession. It was a journal, a collection of justifications, categorized heartbreaks she caused like trophies on a digital shelf. And suddenly, every strange moment over the past year came flooding back. The canceled dinner plans. The sudden interest in yoga. The new perfume she claimed was just a free sample. I felt like the ghost in my own marriage. The man she came home to when all her excitement was spent. I heard her come upstairs. Her footsteps were slow, hesitant. She paused at the door, then knocked, like it was her first time here. You were gone for hours, she said softly. I didn't answer. I didn't sleep. Still nothing from me. Then she said, "Can I come in?" I finally spoke, but not to give her permission. You kept a log, I said without turning around. You actually documented your cheating like it was a science experiment. She didn't reply, but I heard her breath catch. How many were there, Tessa? I turned to face her. 5, 10, 20? Her lip trembled. I didn't mean to. Stop saying that. I cut her off. You meant every click, every message, every hotel, every lie. She stepped back like I'd hit her, but I hadn't moved an inch. She had no idea how much of me had already left. And then I said it. I'm not angry that you cheated. I'm angry that you treated it like a hobby. She didn't have a comeback. She just stood there in the doorway, smaller than I'd ever seen her. She opened her mouth, closed it, then walked away without saying another word. And for the first time since this all began, I felt nothing. I couldn't unsee what I saw. That file wasn't just betrayal, it was a diary of detachment. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was a background character in someone else's game. But what haunted me most was how cold it all felt. How clinical. No poetry, no regret. Just bullet points. I sat there for a long time staring at the shut laptop, my hands balled into fists, my chest aching like I'd been sprinting with no air. Then I did something I didn't plan on. I reached out to one of them. Not Damon. He had already sent a dozen texts that I'd left unread. I chose a name farther down the list, Julian. The notes beside his name had been brief. Artist. Smart. Drinks too much. Lasted a while. That line, lasted a while, rang in my ears. I found him on social media in under 5 minutes. Tessa had followed him from a fake profile, but I recognized his face from one of her old office parties. I sent him a message. Hey, you don't know me, but I think you've met my wife, Tessa. I'm not here to fight. I just have questions. He replied almost immediately. At first he was defensive, then confused, then surprisingly honest. He didn't know she was married until weeks into their relationship, as he called it. And once he found out, she told him we were separated, that I was controlling, and that she was finding her own happiness. He bought it for a while, but eventually he said, she ghosted him out of nowhere. No closure, just vanished. Then he said something that nearly made me drop the phone. She told me you used to check her GPS, that she had to use burner apps just to talk to me. I never once tracked her, never even thought about it. The irony was that I trusted her so blindly she could have done anything and I wouldn't have noticed. She lied to make herself the victim, even in the lies she told her other men. I asked him how long they were seeing each other. His reply, 7 months. 7 months. That was during our anniversary. During my mother's funeral. During the weekend I had the flu and she left me soup at the door, saying she didn't want to catch it. She wasn't avoiding the flu. She was spending the night with Julian. I felt sick, but I kept going. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to punish myself with the truth. Maybe I needed every inch of the wound exposed. Either way, I asked him if she ever talked about me. He said yes, that she called me emotionally slow. Said I didn't challenge her. Said I was too passive, too safe. Too safe. That word cut deeper than the cheating. She made safety sound like a flaw. Like being a stable, loyal husband was some kind of shortcoming. It wasn't just that she cheated, it was that she justified it. She rewrote me into the villain so she could keep playing hero in her fantasy. When I got home, she was in the backyard, sitting on the steps with her head in her hands. She looked up when I approached. There was no pride in her face now, just exhaustion. She opened her mouth, probably to beg, maybe to explain again, but I spoke first. I talked to Julian, I said. Her eyes widened. You lied to him too, I continued. Told him we were separated. Told him I was controlling. Told him I tracked your phone. She didn't deny it. She just started crying. But not the kind of crying that says I'm sorry. The kind that says I've been caught. I didn't know what else to do, she mumbled through tears. You could have told the truth, I said. But you never even gave me that. Then I walked past her into the house, and for the first time since this began, I started packing my things. I left without slamming the door. I didn't want theatrics. I just wanted air. I needed to be somewhere that didn't carry her perfume, didn't have photos of us smiling in better years, didn't echo with all the conversations we never had. I ended up renting a week-to-week studio above a bakery on Jefferson Street. The place smelled like cinnamon in the morning and smoke in the evening. I didn't care. I just needed somewhere anonymous to fall apart. I spent the first night just lying on the mattress, staring at the ceiling fan turning in slow, mechanical circles. I hadn't cried yet. Not because I didn't want to. I just didn't know where to begin. Every time I thought I had processed something, a new memory would show up and slap me across the face. Her laugh during movie nights. The note she once left in my glove compartment that said, I still choose you. The way she'd reach for my hand in traffic. I didn't know how to erase a person who had been my entire life. But that's what betrayal does. It doesn't just break your heart. It warps your entire sense of reality. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. I assumed it was Damon again. Or maybe Tessa, reaching out from a burner phone. But something about the area code caught my attention. It wasn't local. Not even close. The message said, I don't know if you remember me, but I think you need to know something about Tessa. I didn't know she was married either. I'm sorry. Attached was a photo of her. Not with Damon. Not with Julian. With someone completely different. She looked younger in the picture, maybe 2 years ago. They were on a boat, smiling, holding hands. He had his arm around her waist like it had always belonged there. I texted back, Who are you? He replied, Name's Carter. I met her during a conference in D.C. She told me she was a freelance designer from Oregon. We saw each other for almost 4 months. Oregon. She was never in Oregon. At least not for work. I asked him how they met. He said she came into the hotel bar wearing a red coat and ordered a drink alone. Said she was magnetic. That she didn't wear a ring. That she told him her ex-husband was still obsessed with her and she was trying to escape. That he made her feel unsafe. Carter even offered to help her move. Couldn't breathe. She'd used my face as her excuse for cheating. She'd painted me as a monster to justify playing the victim. I asked him for the dates. They overlapped with the time she visited her cousin in Colorado. The The same trip where I surprised her by having flowers delivered to her Airbnb. She had texted me, saying, "You always know how to make me feel loved." The manipulation wasn't just personal now. It was strategic. She had created entire personas, narratives, timelines, false stories where I was the problem, and she was the poor, trapped woman trying to find herself. But what Carter told me next sent me spiraling. She told me she was planning to leave someone, that she was afraid he'd take everything from her, so she needed to be careful. I offered to help her get a lawyer. She disappeared after that. I didn't take anything from her. I never even raised my voice. I gave her everything. My heart, my time, my loyalty. And now I was discovering she was preparing escape plans behind my back like I was the villain in some twisted love story she'd sold to half the country. I thanked Carter. I didn't blame him. He was just another character in her theater. But after I ended the conversation, I sat on the edge of the bed with a single terrifying thought. What if I was never her husband in her eyes? Just a placeholder until something more exciting came along. I didn't go to work. I didn't call anyone. I didn't eat. I sat at the edge of that lumpy mattress in the studio apartment above the bakery, staring at a wall with peeling paint, holding my phone like it might explode. I had every message saved, every screenshot, every photo, voice memo, and contact number from the men who had unknowingly shared my wife. I had enough to destroy her. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be believed. I wanted to look her in the eye, say everything, show everything, and ask one final question. Why me? I drove to the house at dusk. The lights were off, but her car was there. I let myself in with the key she hadn't thought to ask for back. Everything inside was quiet. Not eerie, just still, like the home itself was waiting for whatever came next. She was sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by folded laundry that she hadn't bothered putting away. She looked up like she hadn't slept, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment, and maybe she had. Before she could speak, I sat down across from her and took my phone out. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse. I started reading. Names, dates, places, lies. Not with venom, just facts. Her face didn't change for the first few minutes. Then her breathing got shallow. Then her fingers started twitching. Then her eyes dropped to the floor and stayed there. But she still didn't interrupt. When I was done, I asked, "How many more are there?" Still silent. "Tessa," I said again, calmer than I should have been, "I need the number." She shook her head slowly, eyes glistening, then whispered, "I don't know." That broke me more than a confession would have. I don't know. Like there had been too many to count. Too many lies to track. She wasn't even sure who she was lying to anymore. I told her about Carter. Her expression shifted, recognition, then guilt, then something I didn't expect. Panic. She stood up, almost stumbled over the basket of laundry, and said something that stopped me cold. "You can't tell him everything. Please. He doesn't know everything." "Everything?" I asked. "You mean that you're married? That you live in a house bought with my savings? That you were telling him I was abusive while I was booking spa weekends for you?" She looked sick. And then, quietly, she said, "It wasn't just Carter." That's when she finally admitted what I hadn't even dared imagine. There had been another version of her. A fully fabricated life she'd been living online under a different name. A version of her with no husband, no hometown, no history. She told stories to strangers and built connections with men like she was collecting souvenirs. She said it started as an escape, something she did during the pandemic to feel real again. But it didn't stop. It became compulsive, then addictive. I asked her what she told them. She sat back down, grabbed a blanket from the couch, and wrapped it around herself like a shield. "I told them everything you weren't," she said. "Everything I wanted you to be. And every time they disappointed me, I came back to you and hated you more for not being them." That sentence knocked the air out of me. She'd been comparing me to versions of people she made up in her head, then resenting me for losing to her imagination. I stood up, phone still in hand. I wanted to scream, cry, throw something, anything. But I couldn't. because deep down, a part of me had always felt this. Like I'd been living beside someone whose heart had already left the building years ago. You destroyed both of us, I said quietly. But you burned yourself twice. She didn't stop me when I walked out the door. This time, I left the key on the table. I didn't go back. Not to the house, not to her, not even to the memories that used to make me smile. I stayed in that tiny apartment above the bakery for 2 more weeks. Every morning, I woke up expecting to feel angry. But I didn't. I just felt light. Like someone had finally put down a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. Tessa messaged a few times, long, frantic paragraphs at first. Then quieter ones. Then silence. I didn't block her. I didn't respond either. Some endings don't need conversations. They just need to be left alone. And some people don't need closure, they need consequences. The truth is, I'd spent so long trying to be the safe guy, the one who never raised his voice, who kept everything calm, steady, predictable. But being safe isn't the same as being invisible. And loving someone who only looks for excitement will never lead to anything but self-destruction. I started going on walks, not with any goal, just to see how the sky looked in a new part of town. I signed up for a pottery class. I'm terrible at it, but there's something freeing about letting your hands work without your mind spinning. I even reconnected with a friend I hadn't spoken to since college. We talked for hours about music, about life, about how you rebuild after someone burns your map. One day, while cleaning out my old inbox, I found an email I'd written to myself months ago. A draft. It was a list of things I wanted to do with Tessa that we never got around to. Trips, hobbies, projects. I should have cried reading it. But I didn't. I smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, I realized I could still do all of them. Just without her. I'm not the same person who sat on that couch hearing the words, "I went on a date last night." That version of me was still trying to understand what love meant to someone who never really valued it. This version, he knows his worth now. Thank you for following this story through every twist and truth. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Reddit Confessions, where every story reminds us that even the deepest pain can lead to something powerful.